writing that one down. Oh, it's not always going to be taboo topics, but today it is. Hello everybody, welcome. My name is Megan and I'm with Stressless Weddings. I am a wedding officiant and premarital counselor, so that is what I love to do. And welcome everyone. So that is what I love to do, and today's topic is a taboo one, but it's very important to talk about. So we are talking about divorce is always an option. That's what we're talking about today. And yes, I specialize in marriage. So let that one sink in a little. Let's see. I haven't done my hair in forever, so it's a little crazy. I told myself we're just going to probably jump on in and get started because I know I've had some people message me and text me and tell me they can't join live, and so the goal is always to upload this to YouTube, but at times my phone won't save it, so I've deleted a lot of stuff from my phone and I hope it will save it today. Okay, so let's see. Let's do a few introductions really quick. Again, my name is Megan with Stressless Weddings, and if this is your first time, we welcome you. This is an open community where we share our thoughts and our feelings in a respectful way. So if you are encouraged by something that I say, feel free to put some happy emojis in the comment section because I do love affirmations. And you can always, if the hearts are still there, you can click those. I'm not seeing them right now, but there's stuff to click down here. And if you have an aha moment, we would love for you to put the light bulb in the comment section so we can celebrate with you. You just type in the word light and then click the light bulb. It'll pop up. And we would love to celebrate those aha moments with you. Yay, the hearts work. Okay, awesome. Thanks, y'all. So, without further ado, let's get started. No Chick-fil-A today, which is sad. I mean, I've got some in my fridge, but, you know. Okay. So if you're not following me yet, I encourage you. Oh, there's my hubby. Hi, Christopher. Christopher is deployed on another continent right now, and he is on here. Oh, hi. Okay. So here we go. Today's topic is divorce is always an option. And the reason I chose to say it that way is because so many times I have heard people say, well, you know, divorce is never an option. And that's just not true. Divorce is always an option. Now, I am not by any means suggesting that that is our first option, but I do want to say that it is an option, and it needs to be said for those who need a way out. It needs to be said that it is an option. And what I mean by it's not our first option, I hope that couples will be able to look into some counseling, can talk together, and if you are considering marriage to someone and one of your main thoughts is, well, we'll probably get divorced in a few years, I encourage you to rethink that marriage. So if you're going into a marriage already thinking about divorce, then, you know, let's rethink about that. That's not what we're talking about here. So first, let's talk about why is it taboo. And I talked about it briefly in my Instagram post, and often the topic of divorce is closely related to people's religious beliefs. And if you have ever challenged someone's religious beliefs, you know how sensitive and how intimate someone's belief system can be. So what happens is when we challenge someone's belief system, they can wall up and just totally shut down. Two, they can become upset just in the drop of a hat, or they can even become hostile because they feel that you are attacking an intimate part of themselves. Does that make sense? Give me some thumbs up if you're following me. So that's why often, and we'll just talk about religion real quick, that's why often if you hold a different religious belief than someone else, sometimes when you try to talk with someone about your own belief system, if it goes against theirs, they can become really hostile. And that is because they have intertwined their religion into who they are so deeply that they have decided anyone outside of their boundaries that they set is wrong. And so they're going to push anything away that they don't agree with. And that can end up really messing up friendships and relationships when you try to challenge those beliefs. So often, and also part of why I'm so passionate about talking about this is so many of us are touched and affected by divorce. Whether it is a friend's divorce, parents, grandparents, aunt, uncle, our own personal divorce, people are touched by divorce and it affects, it causes a ripple effect, okay? And recently, I have worked with a lot of clients who've been affected by divorce and personal friends who are in the process of deciding if divorce is for them, and who I think are really struggling where they know in their heart they need a divorce, but they're too ashamed, okay? And anytime that we let shame run our lives and we let shame rule our lives, then we're going to make decisions that aren't healthy for us, okay? I'm going to say that again. When we let shame rule our lives, we make decisions that are not healthy for us. So often I've heard couples in peril say, well, divorce just is not an option. Like I said earlier, divorce is never an option. Well, actually it is. Yes, divorce is always an option. Or as I put on the Instagram little icon, I made it a little less intense. I put divorce is an option. And the reason I said that is because we live in a country with freedoms, and that's one of them. We get to choose. You get to remove yourself from a negative, harmful, abusive situation. You can remove yourself from that, okay? So as I mentioned earlier, I'm a premarital counselor. So I work on the front end of marriages to help couples decide if getting married to each other is the best idea for them. Actually, the slogan on my information packet that I send out at the very beginning is couples who believe in forever, okay? So I personally am an advocate for long-term, till death do you part, monogamous marriage. Okay? I believe in long-term monogamous marriage, till death do you part. I believe in that. But sometimes marriages don't last. I'm going to say that again for those of you who need to hear that. Sometimes marriages don't last. And divorce is okay. You are worth it. Your sanity is worth it. Your kids and your spouse. All of your well-being is worth it. So over the years, I think divorce has become less and less taboo. And those who choose divorce instead of a life of misery or abuse are so, so very brave. I actually know two specific women I'm thinking of that chose a very brave choice to get divorced because they knew it was going to be the best thing for them and their family. Okay? So we're going to go into some reasons behind divorce, and if you're struggling with, is divorce okay? We're going to talk about that. And if you're a religious person, we're going to talk about the religious ramifications and beliefs of divorce as well. And if you're not a religious person, I hope that you will stick with us to understand a little bit more about maybe why religious people have a hard time with the topic of divorce. So, this is important to say. Abuse, this is just one definition of abuse, okay? We're just one definition. There's a lot. Abuse is defined as treatment of a person or animal with cruelty or violence, especially regularly and repeatedly. So abuse is defined as the treatment of someone with cruelty and violence, especially regularly and repeatedly. That was really difficult to say. So, pretty much, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go down the line, and I'm just going to tell you examples and experiences that I know, and just examples of what abuse is, because I think so often so many people are trapped in a cycle of abuse and they don't know it. If you were raised in a home where abuse was normalized, then you don't know that you're in abuse now. Does that make sense? So if you were raised in a home where the mom and dad constantly yelled at each other and berated each other and put each other down, you might think that's a normal way of fighting. You might think that's normal. You might think that that is how people who love each other treat each other. And that's okay that you think that, because you don't have anything else to base that on. But I am here to tell you that that is not love. That is not love. That is not respect. Okay? So if you're in a relationship and you're being constantly yelled at, berated, put down, manipulated, that is an abusive situation. Okay, and sometimes we are so afraid to leave abusive situations because we are afraid, what is somebody going to think about us? What are people going to say about us? How am I going to afford to live? Where am I going to live? I'm going to be homeless. Maybe you have those fears. But I'm telling you right now that getting out of that abusive situation is more important and is better, and you are going to be so much happier and healthier if you go ahead and get out now. So I encourage you to get out of that abusive situation now. It is hard. It is very hard, but you can do it. Okay, some more examples of abuse. Here are some examples of abuse and some examples of where divorce might be needed. Also, feel free to comment. If you all have any comments, you want to add some more examples that I don't say, please feel free to put some examples in the comments right here. I just want to make sure you all are still with me. Could somebody stick an emoji or something in the comments so I know you all are still hearing me? And I'm sitting right beside the internet, the Wi-Fi, but you know, Wi-Fi does not always work for me. I'm going to take a small break. Great. Thank you so much, Megan. Okay. So, here are some reasons that you might be struggling and wondering, is divorce for me? Like, are we to that point now? Maybe you got married young and you and your partner are totally different people now. And no matter how hard you try, you cannot solve your irreconcilable differences. Then maybe divorce is for you. If your partner is abusing you, divorce is for you. If you married into a family, and listen carefully, if you married into a family only to learn that your spouse is narcissistic and the family has tons of hidden abuse and secrets, it's okay to get out instead of letting those other people's lies and skeletons pull you down. It is okay to get out. It does not make you a weak person if you made a mistake. If you get married and then you realize, uh-oh, I made a mistake. That's okay. We make mistakes. And again, marriage is a serious step, and it's something you want to think about and to take seriously. But sometimes things happen beyond our control that we could not have prepared for, or that we did not know. Just like you married into a family that you find out has all these lies and secrets and skeletons in their closet, and then once you get into the family, you're expected to keep those lies, skeletons, and secrets quiet. That's enough to drive anyone crazy and to totally change who you are. That happens all the time. If you got married because all your friends did, maybe you didn't make the right choice. Maybe divorce is for you. If you had a child with your partner hoping that the child would make things better and it didn't, maybe divorce is for you. And I just want to say, and we've talked about this before, so many times people hope that maybe bringing a child into the world with their partner will bring out those good things that they know their partner can be and can do. But having a child does not bring out goodness in people often. Oftentimes it brings out more struggles, because when you have a child, you have to be a team player. And so many times when people have children to try to fix things, the child does not fix the issue because there's an issue deep down. Now here's the thing. So why am I talking about this? Because I believe stigmas need to be broken. And I think this is one of them. Again, don't get me wrong. I believe in the sanctity of marriage. And I am so happy to see marriages that thrive for decades and decades. I'm happy to see those grandparents who have been married happily for 75 years. That is awesome. And my hope is that everyone who desires a partner will find them and live happily ever after in a safe and healthy relationship. But that just isn't the case. And there is so much sadness and abuse and tragedy and crap in the world that it can get in the way of healthy marriages. In fact, it does get in the way of healthy marriages. So, I am going to address the religious folks now. If you are not religious, I hope that you will stick with us, because I hope that this can help you better understand your religious neighbor's point of view. So even if you aren't religious, stick with us. This is just a short bit, and then we'll move on to the next segment. Okay, for so long, if you were raised in a church in the South and in other regions in the country, you were taught that divorce is never an option. Stick an emoji in the comments if you were taught divorce is never an option. Well, that's awesome. Maybe none of you were taught divorce is never an option. That's great. So many people were taught that. They were taught divorce is never an option. And that's why I'm here to say, well, yes, actually it is. As I mentioned before, we live in a free country, and we are so grateful for that. And here we go, back to the religious bit. The Bible has so many great truths and parables to teach us valuable life lessons. And it also comes from a time when marriage required dowries. And let me tell you, there are not enough cows or pigs and sheep on this earth for my dad to trade on my behalf. Because let me tell you, I think that my life and my dignity and my honor are worth a lot more than livestock. Amen? Okay, I'm feeling like I'm preaching now. I'm like, ooh, that's a good bit. I should do that from behind the pulpit. So, some people use Old Testament scriptures to hold up their beliefs and to say that Jesus Okay, so some people use the Old Testament to hold up their beliefs about why they can't get divorced, right? And let me just tell you, if you're using like Levitical law, which means it's like the Leviticus from Leviticus, like different things from that. If you're using Mosaic law, Levitical law, if you're using that as your argument, I have great news. Jesus came to become the new law. Jesus came to become the new law. Jesus is the new law. Jesus' ways wipe those out. If you believe in Jesus, then Jesus' ways wipe those out. And when Jesus came to become the new law, Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thyself, right? Love thy neighbor as thyself. If you're in a marriage where your spouse is not loving you well, is not loving you as thyself, then they're not following what they're called to do, right? If you're in a marriage where you cannot move past resentment towards your spouse, if you're in a marriage where it's abusive, then that person is already breaking the golden rule, is breaking what Jesus called us to, and it's okay to get help. Jesus will still love you even if you get divorced. I'm going to say that again. Jesus will still love you even if you get divorced. Now, here's the thing. I highly encourage therapy first. If you are struggling, if you and your spouse are struggling, I encourage you to get therapy. But here's the thing. So often, the abusive spouse refuses to get therapy. Okay? I'm going to say it again. So often, the abusive spouse, the spouse who is causing the issues, refuses to get therapy. So if you're in that situation, then what's next, right? You keep working with your spouse and you work with your spouse, but if that means you're putting you and your children in an abusive environment, then it's time to get out. It's okay to get divorced. Now, here's the thing. Divorce is not easy. It is not an easy road. If you're looking for a quick way out because your husband annoys you because he won't listen, well, go to therapy, okay? Go to therapy. Divorce is not for the faint of heart. It's tough. Ask anyone you know who's been divorced. It's hard. There's legal fees and paperwork upon paperwork. You've got to move out. Somebody's got to find a new house. You might have to split up cars. You've got to split up all your belongings. You've got to have discussions about that. You've got to tell your family. You've got to tell your friends. It's hard, okay? It's not just like, boom, divorce. We're just getting divorced. It's going to fix everything. No, it's going to be hard because you are going to feel shame and resentment, and it is going to be hard. And I had this conversation with Christopher in the car the other day. We were talking about some people who were struggling with hate, just absolute hate. And my belief is you cannot hate someone unless there's a seed of love in your heart. Okay? You cannot hate someone unless there was once a seed of love in your heart. And so what I mean by that is so often divorced spouses can grow to hate each other. And I believe that's because they once deeply loved each other. And what they're doing is they're just shoving hate on top of that old love, okay? You don't just hate stuff unless you're passionate about it, unless you absolutely, it matters to you. And like maybe you hate a specific political group. Well, it's because you love something dearly that they're against. Does that make sense about the hate and love? Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up. So here's the thing. Their family might start saying a bunch of crap about you. I know some people's kids watch this, so I always try to edit my mouth. Their family might talk really bad about you. I'm going to be honest. It does happen. Their friends might talk bad about you. They might talk bad about you. But think about the freedom you're going to experience. think about the freedom you will experience when you get yourself, your kids, your dogs, when you get yourselves out of that situation. The freedom far outweighs the pain, because the freedom can last forever, but I believe the pain is temporary. So, again, divorce is not for the faint of heart. It's tough. Getting divorced is really high on the psychological stressor scale. It's right up there with like death, marriage, birth of a newborn, so it's a high stressor. And you have to remember that when you get divorced, you are losing a partner and a friend and a lover all in one. And that is a deep loss. And oftentimes, I believe grief, like, there will definitely be a grieving process. Grief is it's a necessity when divorce is involved, because of the change and loss. So when divorce happens, it can even feel like the death of a spouse, because it's the death of hopes and dreams, right? But again, I say to you, it's worth it if you are at that point where divorce is what you need to choose. Divorce is not easy, but I want you to remember that it is always an option. Send a kind message or share a hug with a friend going through a divorce today, because they need your love and support. Okay, now that is the very end of all my notes that I have done for today. So let's see, we're at 30 minutes about. So do you all have any questions? If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section. What I want to say is, if you are considering divorce, I really encourage you to meditate on it, journal about it, think about it. And the next thing I encourage you to do is to seek a therapist and to go to couples therapy and talk about it. If your spouse is not willing to go to couples therapy, then I encourage you to find a personal therapist, okay? Go and find that personal therapist early so you can build rapport and build a relationship, so that when you do go through your grief, you already have a good counselor. And you don't have to do it in this order, okay? Also, another thing that's important is, if you are considering divorce, talk to your spouse about it, okay? I know that seems like a no-brainer, but it's not for some people. Don't just one day serve divorce papers to your spouse. Talk to them about it. Now, here's the thing. If you are in a physically abusive relationship, it's okay to just move out when they're at work one day and then have your lawyer serve them the papers. Yes, do that. If you are in a physically abusive relationship, or psychologically or verbally, if you're in an abusive relationship, it is okay to move out. And if you need help, one of the greatest stories that I know, that I feel honored to know, is there was a woman. She and her daughter had been abused by the dad and husband for decades. And one day when the dad went to work, some of her closest friends came to her house, packed up a U-Haul, and when the husband got home, she was gone. That is the kind of love and commitment and neighbors that I hope to be, and that I hope that you have if you're in an abusive situation. And if you're not, if you don't have that support system, there are so many helplines out there. There are so many counselors who want to help you. I want to help you. I want to pray with you. I want to encourage you. I want to tell you that it's okay. You can get out. And here's the other thing. It doesn't have to be physical abuse in order to merit a divorce. I'm going to say that again. It doesn't have to be physical abuse in order to merit a divorce. There's psychological abuse, okay? Gaslighting is something that seems to be popular lately that people are talking about. If your spouse makes you feel crazy because when you say things to them, they're like, "Nuh-uh, that didn't happen." And you're like, "Yeah, it did." And they're like, "No, that didn't happen. You didn't do that. That's not what you said. And you start to feel crazy because you know what you did and said and believed. That's a form of abuse and manipulation. And if they come from a family of gaslighters, if they come from a family that normalizes abuse, if you try to talk to their mom or dad about it, or you try to talk to their siblings about, hey, I've got some issues going on with my spouse, they're probably going to brush it under the rug because they do that same type of abuse to their spouses. So going to your abusive spouse's family for help, probably not the right answer. Going to a trusted friend, that's a good option. Going to your family, if you have a good relationship with your family, that's a good option. Going to a counselor, great option. Getting out of the relationship, even better option. Remember that you have the power and you have the ability to choose divorce. You have that. Divorce is always an option. Now, say there's not direct, intense abuse, okay? Say you're like, well, my relationship's just not good, but I don't know. Say you haven't been intimate with your partner, with your spouse, in 3 years. Something's going on there. You need counseling. You all need counseling. And another thing that's really important to know is neglect is abuse, right? It's easy to see if somebody neglects a puppy because it's starving and sad and people are like, oh, that poor puppy, those horrible people. But you know, something people don't talk about often is the neglect of a spouse. If your spouse is neglecting your physical needs, your emotional needs, and all the other needs that we have as humans, if your spouse is neglecting those, that is a form of abuse as well. So, here's the thing. No one is perfect, okay? We're going to argue with our spouse. We're going to have disagreements. We might even yell. We might say some things we didn't mean. But the difference is, in a healthy relationship, you can go back to your spouse and you can apologize for yelling at them. You can apologize for what you said, okay? And so, divorce is not something you do just because, well, we argue and it makes me mad, so we're getting divorced. It's not something to take flippantly because, as I said, it comes with a lot of ramifications. And the ripple effect of the divorce is huge, okay? But there are so many couples that I know that need divorce and that deserve divorce, but because of different belief systems or because they're not sure how they can make it on their own, because they're not sure how they can raise their child, they're staying in abusive and unhealthy. We'll say that. Maybe you don't want to accept that you're in an abusive situation. They're in an unhealthy situation. It's not healthy for their kids. It's not healthy for their dog. It's not healthy for them. Okay? So, if that is the case, remember that divorce is always an option and it's okay. And I don't shy away from these taboo topics because I believe that someone out there might need to hear this. And if I can spare one person from continuing to be in an abusive relationship, then it's worth it. It's worth losing certain followers to trying to help one person get out of a relationship that is just absolutely draining. Because here's the thing. We only have so much time on this earth. We don't know how much it is. Okay? Our days are limited. Each day that passes is another day gone, right? Our days are limited. And I believe that God thinks you're worth it to not be absolutely miserable every single day. And again, it's not about superficial happy. I'm talking about intense issues in your marriage. I'm talking about abuse. I'm talking about neglect. I'm talking about those who have went through counseling and are just miserable. I'm talking about those who haven't had sex in years with their partner. Okay? It's okay to consider divorce. And yes, you have to think about how's this going to affect the kids and how are we going to split it up. There's nothing easy about it, okay, y'all? There's nothing easy about it. But if you continue, especially if you're a parent and you continue to remain in a bad marriage, that is what you're showing your children is normal, okay? And let me guarantee you that they are going to believe that is what a normal marriage is until some hard therapy or some hard lessons when they realize, oh, that's not a healthy marriage. So you don't want your kids to see an unhealthy marriage. And I'm not trying to shame you. I'm just trying to remind you that if you don't think you're worth it to get out of the marriage, do it for your kids. Okay? Again, I'm going to open up the floor for questions. So if you have any questions, stick them in the comment box right here. And you know what's awesome? Healthy marriages. You know how they get that way? Hard work. If one partner is not willing to work hard with their other partner, then problems are going to arise. Both partners have to learn each other's love languages. Both partners have to give and take. Both partners have to back down from arguments at times. Both partners, not just one. If one partner constantly has to back down from all the arguments and the other one is constantly bulldozing them, that's not a healthy relationship. In a healthy marriage, there is love and intimacy. There is sex in a healthy marriage. In a healthy marriage, they learn each other's love languages and they reciprocate love to each other, whether that is through gifts, words of affirmation, time, physical touch, and there's another one, but I'm not thinking about it right now. So a healthy marriage works hard every day, and they go through bumps and bruises, and they apologize, and they really mean it. A healthy marriage is not perfect, but they keep trying. And sometimes in relationships, people are just absolutely done trying. And if that's where you are, if you're in a marriage where they haven't tried for years, it's okay to get a divorce. It's okay to take care of yourself. People will still love you. No matter what your spouse says or what the ugly voices in your head are saying, people will still love you. And it will be okay. It will be hard, but it will be okay. So, I'll leave you with this. You are dearly loved, and divorce is always an option. Megan just posted something here. Found out recently that one of my best friends is being abused in their marriage. Oh, struggling to find the balance between being supportive and overstepping by saying what I think they should do. Leave. Megan, I join you in that struggle. I watch so many people I love being in abusive situations and marriages, and it is so hard because you have to be careful to not overstep your bounds, because if they are not ready yet to accept that they are in an abusive situation and you overstep, they can push you out. Especially if the spouse finds out that you're trying to empower them. That's a big thing, y'all. If your friends are in an abusive situation and their spouse finds out that you're trying to help them and empower them, the spouse is going to find a way to absolutely push you out of your friend's life. Very common. Abuser textbook 101, unfortunately. And that has happened to me. People's spouses have pushed me out of their lives because I called out the abuse. And it is heartbreaking and absolutely heart-wrenching. So, Megan, I will be praying for you, and I'm here if you need to text me or to message me about anything as you continue to walk the line and find the balance of how do you encourage your friend and how do you not overstep. And it is so, so hard. And that's part of why I'm doing this Instagram Live. Is because I'm going to get choked up. There are people that I love desperately that need to get divorced. They need to divorce that person that they're with. And instead, I think they're going to choose a life of misery and abuse. And it's really hard. And y'all, when you are being abused, it's not easy to get out. It is not easy to get out at all. So that is really hard. So sometimes people, I think, want to blame the victim. But if you're the victim of abuse, it's just really, it's hard, almost impossible to get out. It feels impossible. It is not impossible. You can get out of an abusive situation, but sometimes it can feel impossible, and that's why people stay in them. Or they stay in it for reasons like I just said. They're afraid, how am I going to pay for this? What are people going to think of me? And that's why I think, you're welcome, Megan. That's why I think it's so important, and that's why I do this, to continue to break down the stigma of, I don't know if those words are in my, if the words are in my face like they are right now, but I don't know if you all can see that. Anyway, that's why I think that the work that I'm doing through Instagram Live is important, because I want to help break down those stigmas. I want to break down the stigma that you can't get divorced or you're no longer worthy, because you can get divorced. There you go. Anyway, okay, I'm going to say it one more time. Does anybody else want to say anything? Feel free. Stick it right there. And always, as always, feel free to message me. Hopefully this will save, and I'm going to put it up on YouTube. If it doesn't, then it'll be up for 24 hours. I will put that in my stories. If you don't watch my stories, please watch my Instagram stories. That's how you can get to know me, and that's how you can interact with me, ask me questions, and then I can build a better, even better Instagram Lives with content that you all want to hear. So as always, remember that you are loved. I hope you remember that divorce is always an option. And be kind to yourself, because if you're not kind to yourself, then you can't be kind to others. Bye, y'all. Have a good one.